All right, how's it going?
Hello,
You doing all right today?
doing good. How about you?
Doing wonderful, doing wonderful. All right, let me do something real quick. Turn this other speaker on. There we go. All right. All right. So I want to welcome everyone to our monthly conversation on mental health. We have a mental health ministry. We have a mental health is one portion within our health ministry. We have numbers, we have movement, we have diet, and we have mental health. And our mental health ministry comes to us once a month with a conversation. And but
How about you?
it was wonderful. But then we also offer one-on-one and group therapy. And so there are people that have been taking advantage, especially when it comes to the children, of one-on-one counseling for the children. And the instructions are pinned to the top of the comments. I want to ask everybody that's watching, if you can go ahead and share the post. I would be greatly appreciative of it if you could share the post. And so today, the audience is in a dangerous space because our our coordinators both had something on their schedule tonight, and so they pre-record the presentation, and so now the discussion, they don't get a chance to control where that discussion goes, and I got a real serious question as it relates to youth in our community. Um, After the presentation that I'd like for us to have some conversation on. And since they're not here, they don't get to stop me from asking that question. And so our co-coordinator, Katrina Rawls, she recorded a presentation, and the title of the presentation was Parenting during Parenting in a Pandemic. And so we've almost found ourselves we're coming out. We see the light at the end of the tunnel. But I'm wondering if there's some side effects, some things that happened while we were attempting to parent through a pandemic that we might not even realize had something to do with parenting and living in circumstances that we've never seen before in our lives. And so and so she's going to share a presentation. She's going to show a video, and then at the end, we can have a discussion. And so let's take notes on what we're hearing. So in that discussion, if there's something that we can bring back in that discussion to kind of guide us, to us novices in that conversation. And so what I'm going to do now is bring up Katrina Rolls, mental health counselor, and play her presentation. And then after her presentation, we'll have an opportunity for discussion. And if there's anybody that's watching online that wants to play a part in the discussion, please do so. But again, go ahead and share it so that we get more people involved in this conversation.
All right. Hello, everyone. I am so happy that you are able to be here with us for this mental health monthly presentation that our mental health ministry does for Greater Bethel AME Church. Our pastor is the Reverend Ron Rawls, and my co-chair is Mrs. Roxalina Rawls. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with our topic tonight. So I'm going to share my screen. Bear with me, please. And then I'm going to go ahead and get our PowerPoint going. All right, if I can get a thumbs up, if everyone can see the PowerPoint. Thank you. Sydney Bain is my helper tonight. All right, so our presentation tonight will be about parenting your way through the pandemic. So I know that we are at a point where we can see light at the end of the tunnel, and we feel like numbers of deaths have gone down. Where they're relaxing whether or not you're wearing masks. People are going back into work, and children are going back into schools and classrooms. But I thought this was something that was important because it has a lot of key issues about not only parenting your way through a pandemic, but parenting in general. So hopefully you guys find it helpful. I know a lot of us out there are parents, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. Okay, so challenges of normal parenting, pre-pandemic. As a parent, we always wanted to make sure that we met our children's needs. That would be by getting them food, clothing, a roof over their heads, making sure they're safe, being supportive, allowing autonomy in childhood, meaning allowing them to choose activities that they're interested in and able to do those activities, being aware of our child's educational needs, making sure we're having conversations with teachers, looking at progress reports and report cards to make sure they're on track. And then also it may have included co-parenting and a co-parenting plan if you're a single parent or a parent who is divorced. So challenges of parenting during the pandemic even compounded those previous parenting challenges. So now we have to decide if our child should be homeschooled or physically in the school building. We have to decide whether or not to stay indoors or attend family events. I know we've had to cancel a couple of family events, but due to COVID and issues with COVID related problems, you have to decide whether to opt out of vaccines and mask mandates for your children. You have to make sure if your child has access to family and friends, just making sure that they're still able to stay connected to cousins, to aunts, to uncles, to grandparents, things like that. Being able to shelter your child from all the negative news and social media that's surrounding the pandemic. So all the stuff that they could see in the news or see on social media that's very negative that we really don't want them to see. So having to do that. And then making sure your child makes healthy choices when they're in public. If they're wearing their mask, if they're social distancing, if they're washing their hands and using hand sanitizer. And then looking for ways to supplement family vacations and other public outings. You have to be careful. You can't be in large crowds anymore. You have to wear your mask if there's lots of people or you're indoors. So just lots of other challenges which have compounded themselves during the parenting during a pandemic. So indicators that show that your child is adjusting appropriately are things like that they're maintaining normal routines. There's no change in their behavior. There's no change in their sleep patterns. No changes in irritability or anxiety, and no changes in mood. So symptoms that may show that indicate that your child is struggling during the pandemic. They could be eating less. If you're noticing that your child is not eating, they're losing weight. They may have trouble sleeping. Some may be more irritable than usual. They may express more worries. They're looking at news, they see news, they hear people talk, they see on social media. So just more worries about what's going on in the world, if they're going to be safe, if their family's going to be safe. Bedwetting, if they didn't bedwet before and now they are bedwetting, or if they're older kids and now they're bedwetting, that could be issues that show signs of your child struggling. Increased aches and pains like stomach aches or headaches. Changes in mood or behavior like tearfulness, sadness, anger, aggression, arguing, oppositional defiance, and then being fearful. There's also increased clinginess or having separation issues. Just be aware of whether or not your child is okay with you leaving them at school or leaving them somewhere with a friend or a family member, or are they trying to stay with you and be with you everywhere you go. There can also show signs of withdrawal, isolation, difficulty concentrating. If you notice they're trying to do their homework, but they're staring off into the distance, they're not able to focus, increased worrying, and then signs of stress and anxiety. So all of these and more could be symptoms that indicate that your child is struggling through this pandemic. So I have a video that I'm going to show. If you give me a second, I'm going to stop sharing my screen so I can pull that video back up. So bear with me. To hear.
Social worker and a licensed marriage and family therapist, and I'm here to present today's webinar, which is Challenges for Parents During COVID-19. And we all know that parents who are home with their kids are in an unusual, very unusual situation these days during COVID. The kids don't have their regular schedules. Parents are often trying to work from home, and it's a really difficult situation. So I hope I'll be able to give you some helpful ideas today. Parenting is always a challenge, but COVID-19 has really changed everything for parents and kids. Lots of parents, as I said, are working, or they're trying to work from home. And schools, daycares, babysitting, all that kind of thing, all of our support systems are pretty much taken out from under us. We're not supposed to be near grandparents, neighbors. We're supposed to be social distancing, which I hope all of you are. And so single parent and two parent households are both struggling to meet the challenges. So you've got a lot on your plate, no question about it. Today's parents wear many hats. You could be a mom, a dad, a spouse, partner, single parent, employee, substitute teacher, referee, recreational director, a playmate, and a person. That's a whole lot. Those are a lot of different hats. And I'm sure that, like most of us, you probably miss your everyday freedoms and just being able to go out and have a good time. In addition, you're the one who's supposed to help guide your kids through this very unsettling and disturbing time. So those are really, really big challenges. It wouldn't surprise me if you feel overwhelmed. Many of us feel overwhelmed. You might feel frustrated and uncertain and lonely and angry and depressed and stressed out. And of course, you're entitled to all of those feelings. As I said, you're human and you're being tasked with something that's very, very difficult. So if you're having those feelings, understand that those are normal feelings. And then, of course, you have to figure out a way to channel those feelings and move on so that you can be a parent to your kids. Here are some tips to help you cope with parenting. Before we start, a quick note for every parent. The tips that I'm going to go over in this webinar are just that. They're just suggestions. They are not a list of shoulds. It's not what you should be doing. It's what you might do, what you can do. And hopefully it'll get your own creative juices flowing and you'll be able to think of even more things. So it's a time that calls on parents to do what they can using as much patience as they can, as much flexibility, and as much creativity as they can. Tip number 1 is to try to stay calm. This kitten looks really chilled out. It'd be nice to be able to be that chilled out. Probably might be a little unrealistic, but please try to stay calm. Realize that nothing about what's going on now is normal. Nobody is at their best. And we don't even know what to look back on and say, oh yeah, we did this at that time. Everything is really different, and we are all experiencing something that we are really not trained for. We don't quite know what to do. So give yourself and your family a break. There is no perfect in this situation, and P.S. perfect doesn't exist anyway. But I want to encourage you to especially be very realistic about how your family manages during these tough times. Tip 2 is to be ready for questions. And remember that kids of different ages will have different questions for you. Now, sometimes you won't know the answers to their questions, and that's okay. You don't have to be you're not Google. You can tell them that you'll try to find out the answer. Other times, kids really are asking a question when they need mostly reassurance. They need to know that, yes, this is scary. Very highly trained grown-ups are in charge, lots of doctors and researchers, and we're going to keep you safe. A lot of times little kids need to know that the grown-ups in their life are going to keep them safe. Now, if a child asks you a question and you're kind of uncertain about what they are really asking, ask them what they think the answer is. And here's why I'm saying that, because I recently had a friend tell me that her child got very upset and wound up asking a question. And the question was, Mommy, how are we going to see each other if we're in lockdown? And so my friend asked what her child thought lockdown was. Remember when we've been talking a lot about being locked down, socially distanced? Well, this child focused on the word lockdown. And when Mom said, what do you think that is? She said, I think it means we're all going to prison and we're all going to be locked up. And what am I going to do without you, and who's going to take care of me? Well, of course, it's not hard to imagine why lockdown might make a child think that. So when you're asked a question, or if your child seems particularly disturbed and you're talking about the situation, see what they think or think they know, because they might be misinterpreting something as simple as that, and it can be terribly upsetting. When you talk to your kids about COVID, remember to stay age appropriate. You don't need to give graphic details to most children of most ages. Maybe teenagers may need to know or ask you for more numbers or statistics or something like that. But little kids don't know and don't need to know about how many cases have been found and how many deaths and so forth. And also let your kids know that if they hear things, they should ask you about them, because they may not be true. Again, I want to reinforce staying calm, because your kids aren't only listening to you, they're watching you. They read a lot from your face and your body language. Number 3, this tip is to try to keep to a routine. For both parents and kids, it's really a great idea to get up and go to bed about the same time that you usually do. Okay, this is really not the time to stay up till 3 a.m. or sleep until noon, maybe once in a while or something, but it is so much better for people to have a routine and get up and brush your teeth and shower or bathe and put on some clothes. They don't have to be fancy clothes or work clothes. Your kids don't have to put on their school outfits. But it is good to get dressed into something. Tip number 4 is to make a plan for each day, and you can do this with a daily calendar. If you have a dry erase board, it works really well, or you can do it on paper and hang up the calendar where the whole family can see it. And you might want to mark off your work time. Maybe you want to work from 9:30 to 11:30 or 12, and mark off your kids' schoolwork time. And tip, try to make number 1 and 2 be around the same time. Also, though, work in some break time so that every hour or so, you take a break, you stretch, you walk around. If it's nice out, you take a little walk with your child. Also, don't forget that there's time for recess during everybody's day these days. Great idea to play a game with your child. If your child is old enough, maybe get your child involved in something other than their schoolwork, and you both do something, but do it nearby, but separately. Or if they're too little for that, do something together, play a game. If it's nice out, go outside. And don't worry, your calendar doesn't have to work out exactly right each day. It's not a commitment, it's a suggestion. But the idea is to have some structure. And it's also really great to have a special surprise at the end of each day if you can. These don't have to be big surprises. It can be, like a piece of candy or some extra time that you'll read a story to your children or something like that. Something that's really going to be a great, fun surprise at the end of the day. Doesn't have to be every day. It can be some days. Tip 5 is that this is a wonderful opportunity to get some projects done around the house, and they can be fun and functional. So you can do things like here we see a mom and a daughter washing the car. That's great. It's fun. It does something. There's lots of other projects. You can have kids clean out their rooms or clean out their closet or their play bin or something like that. And be generous in terms of considering a reward system, because that works. People like to be rewarded for things, and maybe you can think up a point system or something like that. Or if your child likes to save up for things that they then buy, you can give them a quarter for each of the tasks that they do, or whatever you judge to be appropriate. Number 6 is to give kids time to play by themselves. There still need to be limits and boundaries, and you're not the rec director. You're not the entertainment committee because your kids are home. Of course, you're going to be interacting more. And also your kids are going to be probably a little blue and bored because they don't have their regular activities and their friends. But you can expect kids of a certain age to play alone for different periods of time. And you probably know with your own child how long they can do that. So that's okay. And also, I want to remind you that everything doesn't have to be hunky-dory. If your child is being particularly disturbing to you or, really pushing your buttons, it's still okay to give a time out during this period of time. Again, consider that reward system so that when they do play on their own, you can reward them. Also, tip number 7 is to try to take some time for yourself. If you have a partner, you can take turns, and this can be done fairly easily. One partner can watch the kids while the other partner takes a half-hour break or an hour break and does something just for them to get themselves re-energized. If you're a single parent, it might be a little bit more of a struggle and a juggle to get this done. But if you have other friends with kids, you might set up something where there's virtual time where one person, and you can get everybody on one of the, a Zoom platform or some other platform where you are video enabled and audio enabled. One adult may read a book or play a game online with several kids, and that gives those parents a little bit of time off, and then you can switch. If your kids are old enough, let them stay on their own for a little while you do something for you. And if your kids aren't old enough to be alone, try to set them up with a game or a toy while you take a little bit of a time out for yourself. But of course, you need to be nearby. So those are 3 ideas if you are a single parent. Tip number 8, don't forget that rest is an important part of each day because we all need time to reboot, and everyone, children and adults, are at their best when they have enough rest and enough sleep. And look at in this picture how perfect that is, just that wonderful moment where two people are getting a nap at the same time. Of course, it's not always possible, but what a miraculous moment. Maybe you'll get some of those too. Tip number 9 is to remember to take time for grown-ups. And you'll really be better able to be a parent if you carve out some time for your other relationships. You do need to reconnect with other adults on a regular basis. If you're a married couple, maybe after the kids go to bed, you can have a dinner date or a little dance party or just some time to yourselves. If you're a single parent, you could use social and video platforms to meet online with other parents, or just take time to make phone calls to friends and family. Stay connected. Definitely stay connected. It will give you so much more. It'll boost your energy for parenting, which takes a lot of energy right now. You can do it. That's tip number 10. No doubt this is a big challenge for all of us, but you can also see it as an opportunity. It's an opportunity to get closer with your family. It's really an opportunity to not be tormented all the time as you might be when everything is normal, where you're rushing around, you come home from work, you don't have enough time with your kids. Even if you're working from home, you can carve out some time for your kids, and you may find that you draw closer together. Do remember that you, as the adult, set the tone in your household. So if you're frazzled every single day, your kids are going to react to that frazzledness. And if you need more help, and you might need a counselor to talk to or a therapist, you can contact your EAP. You can call your insurance provider to find out about counselors. Or you can look online for other options. A lot of counselors these days are doing televideo counseling, and it's really another wonderful way to get support so that you can do this parenting during this difficult time. You can do this. Good luck, and thank you for attending.
All right, so I'm going to stop sharing there. I hope you guys enjoyed that video. I hope you felt like it was appropriate to what we're talking about tonight, and it was helpful, given some hints. So I'm going to share my screen again and get our PowerPoint back up. My friend Sydney, please give me a thumbs up if you can see our PowerPoint again. And you've got the thumbs up. So really you just need to be making sure that you're looking at signs that your child may need more support. Most children will experience like intermittent symptoms, such as having days and times where they are feeling sad and weepy, because the pandemic can be a sad time. They may have trouble sleeping some, but you want to look at like how much they are doing this. It shouldn't be more than just every once in a while, and then it should actually go away. So we're all adjusting to the pandemic. We're all experiencing things that we may need more support for, and may need to be able to cope during this time. So it's important for parents to be aware of the common symptoms that look like stress or anxiety. These signs may indicate that your child needs additional help. Also, and understand how intense, if it's just a little bit or if it's happening a lot. And then always be sure to speak to your child's pediatrician. Always look into your insurance to see what kind of counseling is covered for you, yourself and your child and your family. Okay, so before we finish up, I want to talk about resilience and just how children are very resilient. We as Black people have been very resilient in all the things that we have been through. So resilience is the courage to come back. And as you can see here, my flower coming up out of that dry riverbed. Resilience is the way to just snap back after you've been through a hard time. So again, what is resilience? It's the ability to recover quickly from adversity, to recover from trauma, from tragedy, from threats, and then significant sources of stress like a pandemic. So 4 core components needed to build resilience are building connections, fostering wellness, finding meaning and purpose in life, and positivity. So when you're building connections, you need to make sure you prioritize relationships that are important to you. Make sure those relationships are trustworthy, they are compassionate. Make sure you're avoiding isolation. Do not get stuck in the house by yourself, not speaking to people, not socializing, not making phone calls. Even if you don't feel safe going outside, make sure you're at least sending emails, making phone calls, putting letters in the mail so you can keep connections during this time. Also accept support, support from your family, support from your friends, support from church. Any kind of support that is given, accept it. And then find some type of group purpose, so where you can help other people as well as helping yourself. Okay, and then wellness, make sure you're taking care of your body. Self-care, making sure you're exercising, making sure you're eating right, eating healthy, drinking lots of waters, fluids, having mindfulness, journaling about things that are going on during the pandemic to get it out of your head onto a piece of paper, yoga, prayer, meditation. Make sure you're avoiding negativity. People don't understand when you entertain negativity, that negativity will eventually take over and make your life miserable. So if you avoid negativity altogether, you won't have any problem with that. Self-compassion, and do not mask pain with drugs and alcohol. There has been a rise of drug and alcohol use, which also spills over into violent crimes that are up during this time of the pandemic. So just make sure you're not trying to mask your pain with drugs and alcohol. Make sure you're finding better ways to cope. Okay, and then finding your meaning and purpose. Meaning and purpose, you can find it through helping others. There's lots of things that you can do through the church. I know our church has farm share, so people are able to go in and help set up food and give out food to the community and people who need it. Be proactive, make sure that you're getting things done ahead of time and not waiting for all the bricks to fall and then you have to come back and set back up again. Just try to be proactive about things. Develop goals, make sure you follow through with those goals. Find opportunities to help people to do different things. And then church discipleship. We talked about this in our one of our Wednesday night Bible studies, where church discipleship helps you bring people to the church. That's also keeping you connected with people and keeping you connected with God. And then connecting with spirituality. So as followers of Christ, we need to make sure we're reading our Bibles. We're attending church, we're getting that word so we can get that fuel to be ready for the rest of the week. Just make sure you're always finding your meaning and purpose and getting some of these things done. And then positivity. How you think impacts how you feel. If you're thinking negatively, you're being Eeyore, you're gonna feel bad all the time. If you're thinking positively, maybe this happened, but I'm still going to be okay. Hallelujah anyhow, then life will be a lot easier. Make sure you're identifying irrational thinking and helplessness. Accept change. Lots of changes happened during the pandemic. Things are not the way they used to be. So accept that change and move on. And then seek optimism. So always try to have that optimistic outlook. Always try to be positive, forward thinking, and then learning from the past. So there's things that we did pre-pandemic and now things we have to do post-pandemic to make sure that our lives are comfortable. Okay, and so always remember to seek help. We all need help sometimes. When our own resources are not enough, don't be afraid to ask for help. When it's hard to function, don't be afraid to ask for help. When activities of daily living become difficult, don't be afraid to ask for help. Okay, so, and as she said in the video, you've got this. We can do this. We've been through a crazy about 18 months of pandemic, coronavirus, COVID-19, whatever we want to call it, a lot of loss, a lot of hardship, a lot of hurt and pain. So in these trying times, we want to remain open, engage in activities so you're not just sitting home in isolation. Stay active, make sure you're exercising, doing different things, and then practice self-compassion and gratitude. I was at a workshop last week and the guy said, make sure that you put things in perspective. So there are a lot of people who are inconvenienced by the pandemic, and then there are a lot of people who are devastated by the pandemic. So just make sure you put things in perspective. If you still have a job to go to, if you still have a roof over your head, be thankful, because there's some people who don't have that. Some people who don't have their life. Okay. All right, so at this time, I'm gonna turn this over to questions. Please direct your questions to Reverend Ronald Rawls and Mrs. Roxalina Rawls. They will answer your questions according to parenting and parenting during the pandemic. I hope you found this presentation helpful. I hope that you could take with you a couple of things, several things that can help you with your parenting, whether it's normal parenting or parenting during this pandemic, coming over the other side of this pandemic. And I hope you have a good night. Thank you.
All right, so wonderful job. So Ronald Rawls don't have any answers for you, and Roxalina Rawls not here, but I did notice that I have a ram in the bush, that one of my spiritual daughters, who is a mental health counselor, is that 879 number that's on here. And so, Jamisa, I need you to get ready to answer my questions and any other questions that are out there, and I already know that you can handle it. And so, Jamisa, come off mute so I can know that you hear me, because I got a question for you. And all you have to do is do *6, and that should bring you off of mute. And Lord, please get off, because I got a question that I sure don't have an answer to. All right, and so we're gonna see if we can get Jamisa, and you would just hit *6. We can get Jamisa to come off of mute to answer this question. And this is my question. This is what I have. I hear so we've had a year of a lot of violence and disruption from our young people in our community, and so I hear a lot of people, you know, on social media and things, and kind of pointing the finger and saying, okay, this is the problem, that's the problem, that's the problem, that's the problem. I'm gonna be honest with you. I really don't know what the problem is. I just try to do what God tells me to do, and hopefully that, you know, that addresses the problem. And so, you know, the reason we did a summer camp was because to try to put our kids in a safer environment. We I'm working with Howard Bishop Middle School, the principal over there, and he's allowing me to bring in a mentoring program. And so there are things that we do. Everybody does their little pieces and hope it makes a difference. Right now we're working, trying to we're having conversations and trying to build momentum to bring in a very successful charter school into an empty elementary school. As it relates to a school, there are some programs that are run out of there, some after school programs, but not a regular full day school. So there's some things that we're doing. Everybody just does their part. But I have when I listen to people and they comment, you hear people say, well, it's the leaders, the pastors that aren't doing, their job in the community. It's the elected officials that are not doing their job in the community. And I have my response is yeah, you take ownership, but I'm not sure exactly what it is that we're supposed to be doing more than what. There's always more, but I just wonder also, is there any do the parents have any responsibility? Because I know that when I was coming up and when I was raised, I knew, hey, when the lights come on, we got shootings going on with young children, at 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning, and I know that when I was young, when I was young, I knew that when the street lights came on, that I had to make it in the house, and we could be in the road playing football, and I could, be in the middle of catching a ball and about to score a touchdown, and I see the street light come on, and I got to show us catch this ball or hit or turn toward the house, and I knew to get in the house, and there were consequences. And so my parents, my parents played a big role in I guess, I don't know, some people don't like it now, but it was my reality and putting fear in me that I needed to be obedient to the rules that they set. And so, I just wonder, do parents bear any responsibility because of what children do? I mean, we've had a lot of violence, a lot of shootings. We had probably about a month and a half just bomb threats. Kids are having to leave school. East Side, it was three days straight that East Side had to leave school, and then it went along about 3 weeks. The schools all throughout the county, kids calling them bombs, threats, and threatening to shoot. When kids are walking, saying, "I see the kids walking down the street," and then and the people that were arrested, the people that were found, these were children that were either at this school or just young teenagers, and so, but listening to this presentation, I wonder, after, a year and a half of a strange way of living, we're social beings, and we can't mingle like we used to. There are a lot of things that we can't do. Life is just different. And so, I wonder, maybe if listen to this thing, the pandemic, because it says some of the symptoms that I saw were irritable, anger, aggression, arguing. And and we always have some stuff like that, but it seemed like it was heightened. It just came to an end, to a head, this year. And so Jamisa has come off mute. Jamisa, can you help me out with that question right there? Do you think the heightened violence and the heightened disruption from our young people in our community had anything to do with the pandemic and what was talked about in this presentation?
From my perspective, I would say it plays a part, because here you have the youth that's been pent up in a house with no kind of outlet. That energy level builds up, and then it's taking in the environment of what they may have been watching on social media, watching on TV. All of that then compiles to now they're out there in the community again, and it's just coming out of them because it wasn't channeled in a productive or conductive way, where it could have been as you say, the parents' responsibilities to find a way to channel that pent up energy. But also looking at, from the parents' perspective, some of them still had to leave the house. So they wasn't there to direct the children. So there's single parent homes where you have kids staying with kids. You know, you have the 15-year-old being home with the 5 and 6 because mom or dad had to go out to work. So I think a combination of all of that has resulted in what we're seeing now. You know, our youth doing what they feel they're big enough to do.
Mm-hmm. So I took some notes, and they gave tips, because I think and you can give me your feedback, and Dr. Cole, you can weigh in. I think that I think we should always be solution oriented, and instead of saying, okay, who's the problem? Is it the parents? Is it the leaders? Is it this or is it that? You know, is the parent? Okay, so now we find ourselves, and this may be an issue as to why we have this heightened, these symptoms that we're seeing that that seems a little abnormal in the behavior of our young people. And so, like, how do we fix this? And so I saw she put 10 tips. And then Jamisa, you can tell me what do you think about these? And then if you have other suggestions that because I think the idea is, as people look at this video and look at this recording, what is it that we can do as a community to, we couldn't do anything, but the pandemic was here, we had to deal with it, but how can we come out of this whole? How can we come out of this not damaged and, for the rest of our lives? And so some tips were: 1, try to stay calm. 2, be ready for questions. 3, keep a routine. 4, make daily plans. 5, use some time for funding projects. 6, give children time to play by themselves. 7, give yourselves time also. 8, rest. 9, remember grown-up time. 10, you can do it. What are your suggestions and ideas? And Dr. Cole, you can weigh in also, but Jamisa, what are your suggestions that, okay, what do we do now? We're in it. Do we just keep pointing fingers at each other? Or is there a way that we could try to kind of get back on the track?
As far as the pointing fingers, absolutely not. At this point, it's a matter of pulling together, working together, being that village again, where you hear everybody say, okay, it takes a village to raise a child. That's what we need again. Because it came to a point to where back in the day, you go to school and the teacher could say, okay, I'm going to talk to your mom, and that made you nervous. That got you scared. Now, if a teacher says, okay, I'm going to call your mom, a child bold enough to say, well, call her, she's going to take my side. Because maybe the parent may come out and go against the teacher. But if we start to pull together, letting our youth know that we have your best interest at heart, and we're going to support each other in making sure you get what you need. Kind of that united front, just like as if you got a 2-parent home. You put on that united front where a child can't separate the two. They know, okay, mom say no, I can't turn to dad. Dad just going to say yes. No, they're going to stick together for what's best for you. So I think it's circling back to that point, pulling together as that village. And some of the tips she shared, oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, some of the tips she said, I think would be very beneficial if it can be put into action.
So what I'm hearing is almost like a divine design to go back to this village concept. That I think the depletion or the diminishing of that village concept really played a role, or is playing a role in our community lagging behind in so many areas. And this could have been actually a divine design to go back to the importance of the village and us depending upon one another and trusting one another and not being and living such a solo life. But us coming back together. And when I think about, Christianity, that's what Christianity is. I think, the scripture tells us in so many instances, to where there's one instance where they put all things together in common, and they supported and looked out for one another. And we see scripture always encouraging community and fellowships. It's forsake not the assembling together of yourselves and this whole community idea. And so in listening to what Jamisa is saying, and she's not my little baby anymore. She's a grown woman now. So but she's Miss Jamisa Lee. But in listening to what she's saying, I think this could be a divine, a divine design to get back to that village. And even where the church is concerned, like I was asking, okay, what more? We're doing this, we're doing that, we're doing all of this stuff, but really trying to make a real effort to pull the village back together. And I think it's so essential in our community when the church is at the center of that, pulling that village together, making sure that we're not this little country club that's off limits to everybody else, but that the church is where anybody needs to have a meeting at the church. Come and let's pull the village back together. I don't know what are y'all thoughts, but that's what I'm hearing through Jamisa and the presentation. You were saying something, Dr. Cole?
Yes, that's what I was saying too, Pastor, is that parents is just have to get back to being parents, parenting, because we are our children's first teacher. And I like you said, back in the day, if the teacher told us if they were gonna call your mama, boy, that was dynamite. You got fear in your you got fear in your spirit right then, because the teacher had the right to give you a whipping, and you knew if you were walking home and you passed the neighbors and they see you walking home, why aren't you in school? They might whip you too, and then when you get home, you're gonna get another whipping. It took that village to keep us out of trouble. And I just think we need to get back to that. And I think God is trying to show us something, tell us something, because we can't be just friends to our children. We got to be the parent. We got to give up some of the things we want to do and concentrate on what this child needs. You got these children and all of them got different needs, but we got to pay attention to every need. Every child is different, but our job is to stay focused and stay on our job, which is the parenting, and help settle these issues that comes up, because children has issues. And that's the way we were taking care of our parents. But parents nowadays, I see them wanting to be their children's best friend. And I just don't get it, Pastor. But I think we do need to get back to that village mentality.
The thing I like about a village, you think about just a diversity of people. You think about these older, wise people sitting around talking to younger people that are eagerly listening, passing down this oral tradition and telling stories, and that's a part of a village. And so I think to have the village, you got to have willingness on all sides, and you got to have trust. You got to have older people, willing to accept the fact that, hey, it's different, but I'm still needed, and I can still learn. And then you got to have younger people willing to trust. I don't know how to do all of this by myself. These people have done this, and I might have some views on how it can be done differently, but these people were successful. You got people that were maids and people that that worked in the service industry, to feed their family, that sent their children to college. And just imagine that, you got people who never had the opportunity to go to college, but they were so focused that they knew what they wanted out of their children, and they did what it took to give their children the opportunities that they felt they needed to be successful in life. And that's just commitment and vision. And it tells me that you don't have to have all the resources to be a strong village. Individually, you don't have to have the resource, but collectively, everybody brings what they bring to the table. Somebody might bring skills, somebody might bring, education, somebody might bring monetary resources, whatever it is, the village brings it together. We work together and we trust one another. And then what happens is the generations coming up are benefited, because one day they'll be the wise and somebody else will be the strong. Yeah, I like this conversation right here. And I think that if we could push that, really push that, and people take that serious, understand how important it is for us. One of my favorite phrases is, "We all we got." And I know it's a whole bunch of people out there that want to help you and want to do this and want to do that. But the reality is, in my mindset, we all we got. I'm unapologetic about that. I don't expect anybody to sincerely, help me and my people out. We have to be there for ourselves. I don't know. Any thoughts?
I agree, Pastor.
All right.
We are brothers keepers.
And then Velma Ross says, God still provides. We must be willing to share and receive. And so there's an importance in the village. We have someone contacted me last week, and they were trying to find people, get different groups to celebrate the different festivals and or the celebrations in during Kwanzaa. And so I'm like, definitely, some people are like, well, that's a man-made, how all that's man-made, I mean, is it a good thing or is it a bad thing? And I think it's a good thing when you promote unity and things like that. And so the one that I took was faith. And it's the last one that we'll celebrate, and we'll do it on January the 1st. But I want to have a conversation on faith and community, and that's getting back to this whole village thing. What purpose does the church have? And I think the church should be that thing. Instead of separating the community, I think the church should be that thing that brings the community together. And so when I read those words of Sister Velma Ross, that God still provides, the church is still the storehouse, it's still the light on the hill, and but we got to be willing to share and receive. And so the church shouldn't be just there just to say we have all the answers. I was talking to one of our college students the other day, and the church has to be willing to hear young people and say, not so much you come to us because we know what you need, but you come to us and tell us what you need, as a 24, 25, 22, 26-year-old young adult. What do you need for the church to help make you the person that you want to be? Because we don't have all the answers. And I think that's where the village thing comes from, that we don't have the answers, but collectively, as they said in this thing, I think, and Jamisa repeated, I think, you can do this and we can do this, but there's a divine design to push us back to the concept of village, in my opinion. Any last words from anybody that's on? All right. Well, I want to thank everybody for your feedback. Everybody that's online, continue to share. Somebody probably needs to hear this, and it still takes a village to raise a child. Child can't raise themselves, and every parent doesn't know everything. I've raised 3 children to be productive adults, and I left that stage of raising still not knowing everything. And so we're all in a place to where we can learn, but people have to trust us to be willing to receive from us. So you all have a wonderful, wonderful week. And I pray the blessings of God upon your life. God bless you and have a good one.
God bless you, Pastor.
All right.
God bless.